turn it tenfold. And certain women who understand male psychology extremely well know exactly how to turn your best qualities into quiet leverage. Today, we're going deep, really deep, on the 5 loving behaviors that look 100% innocent, warm, the dangerous belief. Most men were taught about love caring, romantic, even selfless on the surface. But underneath are almost always about creating influence, obligation, compliance, not genuine connection. Once you internalize these patterns, you will never again confuse real affection with subtle emotional control. You'll see the machinery behind the sweetness, and that sight is permanent protection. This isn't a video saying all women are manipulative. That's lazy and wrong. This is about recognizing specific repeating tactics that show up in modern dating and relationships. Tactics that exploit male wiring and learning how to spot them before they cost you your mental clarity, your boundaries, your self-respect, and sometimes years of your life. If you've ever left a conversation with her feeling confused, guilty for something, you're pretty sure you shouldn't feel guilty about second-guessing your own reasonable boundary or like you overreacted when you know you didn't. This video is for you. Right now, before we go any further, hit that like button if you want more men to wake up to this. It takes 2 seconds and helps push this awareness out to guys who are currently slowly losing ground without even realizing it. And if you're serious about never letting emotional leverage steal your frame again, subscribe, and turn on the bell. This channel exists to help men love deeply without abandoning themselves. We go hard on the truth here. No sugarcoating. Let's start by completely rewiring how you think about love versus control. Most men were taught one extremely dangerous shortcut, core rule: when sweetness shrinks your freedom growing up. If it feels loving, it must be healthy. If she's being sweet, affectionate, vulnerable, generous, it's good. Full stop. That belief is the exact entry point for 90% of the quiet manipulation that happens in relationships, because real love, mature, secure, reciprocal love, does not shrink your world. It does not load every decision with emotional weight. It does not make your no feel dangerous or immoral. It does not require you to constantly manage someone else's feelings at the expense of your own clarity and peace. Healthy love expands your freedom. It gives you more room to say yes when you want to, and just as much room without fear or guilt to say no when you need to. Manipulation does the opposite. It quietly narrows your range of motion, not with force, not with anger through feeling. You don't feel forced. You feel obligated. You don't feel controlled. You feel guilty for even considering your own needs. And that's how decent men surrender territory inch by inch, month by month, without ever consciously seeing a battle line being drawn. Memorize this rule. Write it down. Put it as your phone wallpaper if you have to. If any behavior, no matter how sweet, how romantic, how caring it appears, makes it harder for you to say no when your gut knows you should say no, that behavior has stopped being pure love. It has become leverage. Full stop. This isn't about becoming paranoid and rejecting every kind gesture. This isn't about turning cold, distant, or cynical. This is about developing emotional X-ray vision, seeing intent and impact beneath the surface. 2 actions can look one over-the-top praise that creates identity debt identical from the outside. One builds real trust and connection. The other quietly conditions you for compliance. The difference isn't in what you see. It's in what happens after you feel the warm feeling. Does your range of free choice expand or shrink? Once you start asking that question, instead of just riding the emotional high, you stop being reactive and start being strategic. You stop asking, does this feel good right now? You start asking, what part of my autonomy, my clarity, my boundaries, is this asking me to trade away? Now, let's go through the 5 in extreme detail. Number 1, over the top, perfectly timed, almost cinematic praise. It starts innocent enough. You're honestly the best man I've ever met. I've never felt this safe with anyone before. No one even comes close to you. You're different. You just get me in a way no one else ever has. For a lot of men who maybe don't hear words like that often or ever, these land like emotional rocket fuel. Your posture changes. Your chest opens. Your guard drops. You think, finally, someone who sees me, someone who values what I bring. But when that praise becomes constant, lavish, perfectly timed, and never seems to run out, something else is happening. It stops being appreciation and starts becoming psychological debt creation. She isn't just describing who you are today, she's installing an identity you now feel pressure to live up to forever. The understanding man, the generous man, the safe man, the one who always gets it. Men are biologically and socially wired to protect how they're perceived by a woman they care about, especially when that perception is extremely flattering. Once you accept and internalize that praise, and most of us do because it feels so good, violating that identity starts to feel like self-betrayal. A good man wouldn't disappoint her. A generous man wouldn't say no to something small. A caring man wouldn't make her feel rejected. That's the hook, and it's incredibly powerful because it operates below conscious awareness for most men. Real appreciation doesn't need a payoff. It doesn't require you to prove it was earned later. Genuine compliments stand alone. They don't come with an invisible invoice. But when praise is deployed strategically right before a request, right when she senses resistance, right when your boundary is about to surface, it becomes emotional positioning. She softens you, elevates your ego just enough, paints this beautiful picture of who you are, and then quietly ties that picture to compliance. Example scenario, most men have lived. She spends 3 days telling you how thoughtful, how mature, how different you are. Then on day 4, you're so understanding. I knew you'd get why I really need you to do this one thing for me this weekend, even though we had other plans. The compliment now has direction. Saying yes feels like staying congruent with the amazing man she's described. Saying no feels like contradicting that man, disappointing her, and betraying the identity you've started to enjoy wearing. Most men never clock the transition because nothing, checkpoint, how to spot praise before a request, aggressive happens. No yelling, no threats, just warmth, just love, just validation. But when validation becomes a tool to shape future behavior, it is no longer about connection. It is about influence. An influence that goes unrecognized always comes with a cost, usually paid in autonomy, peace, or resentment you can't even name yet. Internal checkpoint. Practice this every time. When a wave of praise is immediately followed by an ask, freeze internally for 5 seconds. Ask one question. Would I still be leaning toward yes if none of this praise had happened in the last few days? If the honest answer is no or probably not, congratulations. You just caught the bait before you swallowed it. You can still accept the compliment. You just don't let it buy your decision. Number 2, strategic weaponized vulnerability. Vulnerability is beautiful when it's real. It builds bridges. It creates safety. It invites true intimacy without scorekeeping. But there is another version that wears the exact same clothing and functions completely differently. This version never arrives randomly. It arrives with surgical timing, right when you're about to hold a firm boundary, right when you're about to ask her to take accountability, right when you're about to say no or this doesn't work for me, right when the spotlight is about to shift onto her behavior. Suddenly the tears come, or the shaking voice, or the story about past trauma, abandonment, betrayal by exes. Every man eventually hurts me. I thought you were different. This is why I have trouble trusting. The emotional gravity of the entire room flips 180 degrees in seconds. Your boundary discussion evaporates. The conversation is no longer about the practical issue or your legitimate need. It is now about her pain and your role in potentially adding to it. That is the difference between authentic vulnerability and weaponized vulnerability. Real vulnerability seeks mutual understanding and closeness. Weaponized vulnerability seeks relief. 2. weaponized vulnerability and tears at perfect timing from consequences, from responsibility, from discomfort, from having to face the mirror. It redirects focus away from the issue and places massive emotional pressure on how cruel you will feel if you proceed with your original stance. Men are deeply conditioned to protect and reassure when a woman appears emotionally raw. Your nervous system responds automatically. Soften, back off, reassure, prove you're not like the others who hurt her. That instinct is not weakness. It's empathy and decency. But when that exact pattern shows up every single time your needs or boundaries are about to take center stage, it is no longer coincidence. It is strategy. Classic sequence. You say calmly, reasonably, "I'm not okay with this. I need us to slow down. Change this pattern. Respect this limit." Instead of engaging with what you actually said, she shifts the frame. All the men in my life end up leaving when things get real. I finally let myself be vulnerable with you. I guess I was wrong to trust again. This is why I keep my walls up, because even the good ones hurt me eventually. Now, you are no longer having a practical conversation. You are standing trial for your character. The topic has been moved from what makes sense to what kind of man are you? In that moment, a huge number of men feel an almost irresistible internal pressure to prove, "I'm not heartless. I'm not selfish. I'm not just another disappointment in her story." That is the guilt frame locking into place. Your boundary becomes evidence of cruelty. Your hesitation becomes harm. Holding your ground now feels like inflicting pain on someone already wounded. Many men abandon their position here, not because her logic convinced them, but because carrying unearned guilt is emotionally unbearable. Her pain may be 100% real. Her history may be tragic, but timing reveals intent. When vulnerability is deployed specifically to neutralize your clarity or consequence, it stops being a shared human experience and becomes a negotiating weapon. Internal checkpoint. Use this every time. If she hadn't opened up with this exact story or emotion and tears right now, would my answer still be the same? If yes, your clarity is intact. The guilt being generated is an override tactic, not a legitimate reason to fold. Healthy connection holds space for both empathy and personal limits. Manipulation forces you to choose one, and almost always demands you choose her emotions over your own spine. Number 3, self-sacrifice. Generosity with invisible strings. This one is incredibly hard to spot in the moment because it looks like pure, selfless love. She goes massively out of her way. Cooks your favorite meal after a long day when you didn't ask. Buys something you casually mentioned months ago. Cancels her plans to support you through something difficult. Stays up all night helping you with a work crisis. Your first and completely normal reaction. Gratitude, respect, warmth, even awe. She really cares. Look at what she's willing to do for me. But here's what most men don't clock until much later. Checkpoint. Guilt versus real empathy test. That gift was not free. It was a deposit into an emotional ledger you didn't agree to open. Once the deposit is made, the balance of power tilts. You are no longer just a partner. You are now someone who owes. Men hate feeling like takers. We hate feeling ungrateful. We hate the idea of being the guy who receives huge effort and gives nothing back. So when that sacrifice resurfaces, sometimes days later, sometimes weeks, almost always at the exact moment you're trying to assert a boundary or say no, the pressure is intense after everything I've done for you. I wouldn't have gone through all of that if I didn't care this much. I sacrificed so much time, money, energy for us. Notice what happened. The original act of kindness is no longer floating freely as generosity. It has been preserved as leverage. It has become a reminder. It has become emotional currency pulled out when she needs to shift the power dynamic back in her favor. Real generosity releases the moment it's given. It doesn't keep mental receipts. It doesn't wait for the perfect moment to cash in. When sacrifice is stored, remembered, and strategically redeployed, the original intention was never purely loving. It was strategic investment. Over months or years, this turns into guilt-based compliance. Every argument includes receipts. Every disagreement reaches backward in time. Every no you attempt gets weighed against a growing list of everything she's done. Love quietly becomes accounting. Desire contracts. Spontaneity dies. Attraction fades. You stop acting from authentic want and start negotiating against an invisible balance sheet that somehow never quite reaches even and is always tilted in her favor. Hard truth, most men learn too late. Love gives. Control keeps receipts. The moment you notice past sacrifices being weaponized to steer your present decisions, you are no longer responding to affection. You are responding to pressure dressed up as loyalty. No relationship built on silent accumulating contracts stays healthy for 3. Self-sacrifice, generosity with invisible strings, long. Resentment builds in the shadows, and resentment kills connection faster than almost anything else. Number 4, sudden, strategic physical affection, intimacy. This tactic is especially powerful because it bypasses words entirely. Tension is rising. You've raised an issue that actually matters to you. Maybe it's a boundary violation. Maybe it's repeated behavior you've asked to change. Maybe it's a legitimate concern about the direction of the relationship. The air gets thick. You can feel the friction. And then everything changes in seconds. She moves closer. Her hand touches your arm, your back, your face. Her voice softens. She becomes warmer, more affectionate, more sexual. She kisses you deeply. Maybe more happens. And just like that, the tension evaporates. You feel connected again, desired again, calm again. The original problem fades, not because it was resolved, but because it was chemically sedated. This is not resolution. This is sedation. Physical closeness, especially sexual closeness, releases oxytocin, the bonding hormone, and dopamine. Your nervous system downregulates, your defenses drop, your sense of urgency about the issue dissolves. Your body literally calms down before your prefrontal cortex, the part that holds boundaries and long-term clarity, can finish processing. You start gaslighting yourself. Maybe I was overreacting. Maybe it's not that big a deal. She clearly cares. I can feel it right now. But rewind the tape. The affection didn't arrive randomly. It didn't arrive before the tension. It arrived exactly when clarity and accountability were most needed. That timing turns intimacy into anesthesia. Real closeness can hold space for hard conversations without needing to erase discomfort first. Manipulative affection avoids hard conversations by flooding the system with feel-good chemistry. If warmth and physical closeness only appear reliably when there's something uncomfortable to distract from, then affection has stopped being a bond and has become a tool. The danger compounds over time. The unresolved issue doesn't disappear. It goes underground. It waits. It grows. It returns stronger, usually with more resentment attached. Worse, your nervous system gets classically conditioned. You begin associating emotional friction, physical closeness, relief. Over months or years, you train yourself to override your own instincts in exchange for the temporary peace that touch brings. That costs self-respect. That costs trust in your own judgment. That costs your ability to hold boundaries without second-guessing. Key distinction to burn in. Calm does not mean resolved. Feeling good does not mean being heard. Peace that requires you to abandon an important truth is temporary by design. Number 5, I did it for us. Unilateral decisions wrapped in moral framing. This one sounds mature, responsible, even how scorekeeping kills attraction. Over time, romantic on the surface. She makes a decision that directly affects both of your lives without asking, without discussion, without checking your availability or consent. Books a trip, commits you to an event, family obligation, pushes the relationship forward on her timeline, telling friends you're basically living together, announcing exclusivity publicly, etc. Signs you both up for something expensive or time-consuming. When you express discomfort, hesitation, or a simple need to discuss first, she immediately reframes, I did it for us. I'm just thinking about our future. I thought you'd be happy I took the initiative for once. I'm showing you how serious I am about us. Now watch the frame flip. The conversation is no longer about consent or process. It's about intention and investment. If you resist, you're no longer disagreeing with a decision. You're questioning her care, her commitment, her love. You're positioned as the one who doesn't care enough, the one who isn't serious, the one holding us back, the selfish one. That is moral pressure. Your legitimate need for input consent gets reframed as character failure. Real partnership does not skip dialogue and then demand retroactive approval. Real partnership does not disguise unilateral control as taking initiative. Real partnership does not use us as a weapon to override one person's voice. Men often comply here, not because they agree, but because they, for sudden physical affection as chemical sedation, desperately don't want to be seen as the guy who stands in the way of us, the guy who isn't Alan, the guy who ruins her thoughtful gesture. But reclaiming your voice doesn't require shouting or escalation. It requires calm, unapologetic clarity, script you can use. Practice saying it out loud. I really appreciate the intention and that you're excited about us. At the same time, decisions that affect both of our time, money, energy, future require both of our voices before they're made. That's not resistance. That's partnership. When you stand on principle instead of reacting to guilt, the emotional fog usually lifts quickly. Either the dynamic recalibrates toward mutual respect, or it reveals that partnership was never the actual goal. You are not rejecting us. You are defining what us actually means. Mutual consent, mutual voice, mutual respect. Any relationship that cannot tolerate that basic definition was never built on solid ground to begin with. Now step back and look at all five together. Over-the-top praise creates obligation through identity debt. Strategic vulnerability creates guilt through emotional hostage-taking. Self-sacrifice with strings creates debt through scorekeeping. Sudden physical affection creates distraction through chemical sedation. I did it for us. Creates moral pressure through reframing consent as selfishness. Different delivery methods, same core outcome. Your ability to choose freely gets smaller, not through threats, but through feelings. You get nudged, softened, redirected, flooded with emotion until compliance feels easier and more loving than holding your ground. And that's how good men slowly disappear inside relationships, while everyone around them, including sometimes themselves, still believes they're being great partners. Here's the truth: most men don't hear soon enough. When love consistently makes you feel smaller over time, less certain, less grounded, less free, more anxious about doing the wrong thing, it is not love doing that to you. It is emotional leverage. Healthy connection strengthens your spine. It doesn't bend it. It doesn't demand you constantly manage someone else's emotions at the expense of your own clarity and self-respect. It never asks you to trade autonomy for harmony. The goal is not to become guarded, suspicious, or closed off to why calm doesn't mean resolved love. The goal is to become unmanipulatable, to recognize when warmth, praise, vulnerability, generosity, or us language comes with invisible strings, to notice when affection is being used to steer rather than connect, to stop mistaking emotional pressure for intimacy. Once you see the pattern clearly, the power dynamic changes forever. You stop reacting emotionally in the moment. You start choosing from a place of inner stability. You stop feeling guilty for having normal boundaries. You stop confusing one-way sacrifice with love. Awareness doesn't make you harder to love. It makes you impossible to control. What I want you to walk away with today: you do not have to stop loving deeply. You do not have to become cynical about every kind gesture. You do not have to harden into someone cold and unrecognizable. The real shift is simpler and harder. Stop paying for connection with your autonomy. Healthy love does not require you to constantly explain yourself, justify normal boundaries, manage someone else's emotions at all costs, or feel guilty for having limits. It does not ask you to trade clarity for comfort or self-respect for temporary peace. A grounded man can love profoundly because he doesn't abandon himself to keep the relationship floating. The moment you spot emotional leverage for what it is, you stop shrinking. You stop over-explaining. You stop over-giving to buy approval. You stop mistaking pressure for closeness. Instead, you 5, I did it for us, unilateral decisions. Wrapped in love, choose from strength. That's not selfish. That's leadership. A man who knows where he stands is much harder to move. Not because he's closed off emotionally, but because he's clear. And clarity is the one thing emotional manipulation cannot survive. If this video helped you finally name something you've been feeling for months or years, but couldn't put words to, drop a like right now. It tells the algorithm to show this to more men who are quietly losing themselves in the name of love. Subscribe if you want to keep getting this kind of no BS clarity. We're building a community here of men who love hard without losing themselves. Turn on notifications so you never miss one. Comment below. One word or one sentence. Which of these 5 hit you the hardest? Have you lived through one or more of them? What clicked for you today? And if you know a brother, a friend, a cousin, a co-worker who's slowly giving up ground, excusing things he never would have before, walking on eggshells, second-guessing himself constantly, send him this video. One share can save months or years of confusion and resentment. Awareness is the first and most powerful line of defense. Once you have it, never give it back. Thanks for going deep with me. Final takeaway: become unmanipulatable today. Stay grounded, stay clear, stay free.